What's up, y'all? If you're new here, I'm Sephora. I'm a beginner entrepreneur, and today we are going to be reacting to another video. This one is a little different because it's Graham Stephan. I love Graham Stephan so much. I watch every single one of his videos, and I really look up to him, and I learn a lot from him, so I'm hoping I learn from this video too. We'll learn together. We'll learn from Graham Stephan. The video is titled, Why You'll Regret Buying a Home in 2021. I'm already glued because I really want to go into real estate. Like, real estate is just so cool, you know? Like, you buy a house and then you rent it out to people. And it seems like such a simple concept. I want to know what's difficult about it because not everyone is doing it. And there's a reason why, you know? Anyways, if you like this video, please be sure to hit that like button. And be sure to check out okep.com. Okep is a very cute In Vogue clothing store. The website is not out yet, but if you click the link down below, you'll be the first to the gold. Alright, let's see what Graham Stephan has to say.
What's up, Graham? It's Guys here. So today we got to talk about what's happening with one of the most peculiar, misunderstood species on the planet, the millennial. They've been meticulously studied throughout their rather expensive drinking habits, unusual clothing choices, and uncontrolled student loan debt. But
yeah, millennials are cool, but I'm not a millennial, so... I wonder what will make Gen Z special, you know? Because millennials have their thing about all of what he just said. What's Generation Z's thing? What are we known for?
new information has just been revealed which found that 2/3 of millennials regret their home purchase. It's even said that millennials are getting screwed again by the second housing crisis in 12 years. The first from entering a job market in the middle of the Great Recession, and the second when housing prices increased at their fastest rate in, well, pretty much ever. So as a fellow millennial watching all of this happen firsthand, being in real estate full-time over the last 13 years, we gotta talk about these issues and what's going on so you don't make these same mistakes as well. Because
yeah, how do you regret buying a home? Like, wouldn't you be really, really picky about which home you get? Because that's like a lot of money, you know, and you're gonna be living there. So wouldn't you like make sure that you really, really like it? Why would you regret that? Or is it like buying a home in general? Like they regret buying a home, they wish they had an apartment or something? I don't know. This just seems really weird. It just seems like something that is interesting to regret buying. But if you don't play it right, it becomes a liability and you don't use it as an asset. So
I think this one has a lot less to do with the current state of the market and a lot more to do with poor planning and short-sighted mistakes that I think anyone can easily avoid just by watching this video and smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Okay, but in all seriousness, I know I joke about smashing the like button all the time, but for real, it helps me out a ton, and the more likes a video gets, the more likely the YouTube algorithm is to promote it to a brand new audience. So if you want
yes.
If you want this video to randomly show up in someone's subscription feed who's like, yo, who is this guy and why is his mouth always open in the thumbnails? Just hit the like button, and as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a baby giraffe. So thank you guys so much, and also big thank you to Omaze for sponsoring this video by literally giving away a dream house or $1.3 million in cash, but more on that later. Alright, so to start things off, as it is right now, things are not looking so good for millennials in terms of their real estate prospects. Business Insider just recently ran an article explaining how millennials just happened to fall into a string of bad luck that worked against them in terms of building wealth. Up first was the entrance to the job market, right as the Great Recession was taking place and mass layoffs became the norm. That led to 10% smaller salaries up front, which didn't fully recover until 10 years after they started working, which would be now. But then just
Okay, so are we blaming the younger generation now for... Okay, that's chill. We get blamed for a lot, so that's fine.
just as things were starting to look up, the pandemic hit. That not only fragmented the workforce, but it also drove up real estate prices to the highest level they've ever been in history, with 40% fewer homes on the market today than a year ago, making it nearly impossible to buy a house on reasonable terms. Because
Oh yeah, I talked to a real estate agent, I edit videos for her, and she has been talking about how there really hasn't been many homes for sale in the town that she works in. Like literally barely any, like 10 houses during the pandemic. It was really, really bad. And now it's getting better, but oh my goodness, it's crazy.
Shortages across inventory and materials are driving up the price and the competitiveness among offers. Millennials are simply getting outnumbered by wealthier, more experienced buyers. And the chief economist of Redfin says that it could take decades until they're able to build enough housing supply to meet all the demand. And today, millennials have the lowest homeownership rate of any prior generation, held back by a lack of saving, expensive housing prices, debt, student loan debt, and more debt. Which is why
It's bad. Everything is screwed for the millennials, I feel like the millennials get the scraps of everything.
it's important to understand exactly what's going on so none of this happens to you. Alright, so this all starts with a survey from Bankrate, which tracks the rate of millennial homeownership and the mistakes they make along the way. According to the survey, they say that 26% of millennial homebuyers between the ages of 25 and 31 say their biggest regret was not being prepared for the maintenance and other extra costs associated with homeownership, which
Yeah, I feel like what a lot of people's problems are is that it's like they're just not prepared for the actual cost of the world, because literally everything costs money. Like, jeez. And homes need a lot of attention, and they require a lot of money, especially if you're gonna like fix it up in order to make more money. It's absolutely insane.
I gotta say, this one really needs to be planned for and expected ahead of time. Like when you're renting, it's easy to assume that unless you go out of your way to break something, chances are your landlord is going to fix it, but when you actually own the home yourself, that's not the case. It's really important to understand that with real estate, your payment doesn't just stop with your mortgage. You're also responsible for property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and the strong likelihood that something is going to break as soon as you buy it. Not to mention,
I hate that literally everything costs money like that. Like, they literally, like the government throws every single possible kind of tax at you, especially if you're like owning a home, and it's horrible that like property tax has never made sense to me. You're being taxed for owning it, like that is absolutely ridiculous to me. Can someone explain to me why that's a good thing or why that needs to be a thing? Because I just don't get it at all.
not to mention, everything in a property has a lifespan where eventually it's going to need to be repaired or replaced. For example, a roof will generally last anywhere from 15 to 25 years, AC units 10 to 15 years, water heaters 8 to 15 years, garbage disposals a few weeks, and so on. And when you begin to average all of those costs throughout the entire term of your home ownership, you're going to start to quickly realize that all of that begins to add up a lot faster than you would expect. So there's a few easy ways around this to make sure you don't fall victim to the same mistake. Number one, a solid home inspection would uncover a lot of these issues before you even buy the house. Just knowing what equipment is near the end of its lifespan and what repairs you're likely going to have to do over the next year is going to leave you a lot more prepared for when those items eventually do break and it's going to cost you money to fix.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, pretty much just doing your research and making sure that it's actually like good and knowing your stuff before you get the house. Yeah, that seems like the solution to a lot of stuff. Just knowing what the heck you're doing and doing research into it so that you're just not going in blindly and then you're screwed.
And second, just expect that your maintenance is going to cost you an extra few $100s a month at minimum on top of your ordinary housing payments for things that just break and need to be fixed, because that's life. So just assume your payment is going to be higher than you would expect, set aside a few $100 extra a month for things that will break, and do a home inspection so you know on average what you're going to have to repair. Next, second, even more surprising, 13% of millennials say they have regrets about their mortgage rate being too high or paying too much to buy the house, which
I don't know if that depends on where you live, but like here it's absolutely insane. But like places like Texas, like dang, how is it that low? You know, like you can get so much more for lower prices. Like you could get a huge house for like 400K, maybe like I don't know. I don't know much about mortgage though. Do you guys know anything about mortgage?
I have to say, it doesn't really sound like a regret, but instead the consequences of a rushed decision without thorough planning. Now, because technically this is a two-part regret, let's focus on the first one with their mortgage rate being too high. To me, this sounds like a mistake of not shopping around and doing your research to make sure the rate you're being quoted is actually the most competitive rate.
See, Literally just doing your research and knowing what the heck you're doing.
Banks almost always have a template that they work from with a standard rate that they offer you up front. And they're not going to budge from that rate until you give them another lower offer. So if you're trying to get the lowest interest rate, go and get a quote. Take that quote to a second lender and have them beat it. Then take that quote to a third lender to have them beat it again. Then just keep repeating that process over and over and over again until eventually you get the lowest interest rate.
See, that's the thing. I feel like, yeah, you just gotta know what you're doing and put in the research. But the reason a lot of people don't do it is because it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy. So if you want to save money and you really want to make good investments and make sure like it's an asset and like it's going to be good, it's not going to be as much of a problem, then you have to like really put in a lot of time, make sure that it's good and move it around like he said. So you gotta sacrifice time in order for the money.
Like according to a study in 2018, just going and getting one extra quote saved an average of $1,435, and the borrowers who got 5 quotes saved an average of almost $3,000. And then second, it's expected that in a market like this, it's hard not to feel like you're overpaying for something just for the sake of being able to buy it. But that's a symptom of supply and demand, and ultimately the market is dictated by how much a buyer is willing to pay. The best way that you could prevent this is to have a strict budget in mind ahead of time, and only pay up to the point where you wouldn't mind walking away from the deal if it goes above that amount. This is going to prevent those buyers from getting caught up in the moment or overpaying because they don't want to lose out on the deal, and then realizing that maybe they paid more money than they wanted to. But overall, this regret is easily avoidable ahead of time with just a little forethought and planning. Unlike the next one, which you're not going to know of until you move in. But before I go into all of these other headaches, maybe I have a better housing solution for you, and that's all thanks to our video sponsor today, Omaze, who's giving you a chance to win one of their biggest prizes yet. You could pick—
He always has some kind of sponsor. But like, that's how you make money. Sponsors. I don't have any sponsors yet. Don't worry. And if I were to have a sponsor, I would totally make sure like it's actually reliable or actually good, you know? Unlike those celebrities, am I right?
Pick between a dream house in Austin, Texas, or you could go and walk away with $1.3 million in cash, your choice.
I'm skipping this sponsorship.
Alright, so the next regret listed here was realizing that the home you just bought was not the right fit, and that makes up a significant portion of all homeownership regret. Now it's really—
That seems insane to me. Like, you really didn't, like, you know, like, if you go look at a house, wouldn't you know, like, I don't know, but like, you gotta plan out these things. Like, you gotta figure out, like, this is what you need to do. This is the amount of room you need in order to do what you need to do, or the family that you have, and then go from there. Like, I get if you're like one person and you decide to get a home and you don't really, like, if you're a first-time home buyer, it kind of makes sense because you don't really have experience in what you really need. But I don't know. It just seems like a lack of preparation.
It's really important to realize that in a highly competitive market like this, there will be compromises. And unless you have an unlimited budget of money to create your perfect fairy tale dream home in a good school district without noisy neighbors, you're not going to be able to get everything you want, especially as a millennial. But these regrets listed, in my opinion, are not something that should be happening. From my experience, it's easy to over or underestimate how much space you need when you're looking at a new house, and sometimes life happens and things change. But the reality is this: as a millennial, the house you buy today is unlikely to be the same place you're living 15 to 20 years from now. And on average—
That is true. He has a really good point. We just gotta accept and adapt. Okay.
average, according to science, you're probably going to be moving every 13 years or so, if not sooner. So any size setbacks are only temporary. Most of the time you'll be able to make it work, and there's nothing that says you can't make different adjustments in the future to get the property you've always wanted. Now, as for the location, unless you're buying a house by throwing a dart blindfolded onto a map, this doesn't change, and it's going to be up to you to get to know the area you buy into before you buy it. I have a feeling this regret is a lot more prevalent too, given that 40% of millennials are comfortable buying a home online. Maybe—
No! Don't do that! I hate that so much! Online shopping is great for so many things, but buying a home online, oh my gosh, no! I don't even get the buying cars online thing, like with Carvana. It's like, no, I gotta see it. Like that is way too much money to just pay online. Like, you gotta see it in person. You gotta see what you're working with. Ooh, no. Oh my gosh. Why would you do that? Yeah, I guess convenience, but you gotta go somewhere outside of your home. Dang. Well, I guess you don't have a home because you're buying one, but nonetheless, that is just horrible. Please don't buy a home online.
Maybe before they realize it's not in the best location. That's why I always recommend stopping by the home in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and preferably go and talk to the neighbors. You're gonna learn a lot about the neighborhood and which ones like to throw late night parties, which ones start their lawnmower at 5 o'clock in the morning, and which ones have not gotten their free stock yet worth all the way up to $50 down below in the description. The area you buy into is really something that should be thoroughly investigated prior to you even writing an offer. And unfortunately, this is something that so many buyers overlook, especially when they're in a rush to go and buy a house. And then finally, the last regret was that 9% of millennials believe the home they bought was not a good investment. And for this,
that hurts. I feel bad for them. Yikes.
This one, we really got to dig a little deeper. A few years ago, CNBC ran an article claiming that a record low number of millennials thought that buying a home was a good investment. Now back then, most respondents said that buying a home was a bad investment because the prices were too high. But that comment didn't really age too well, considering that now today, the median price skyrocketed all the way to $320,000, with other areas up significantly more than that. So now in hindsight, back then housing was actually pretty affordable. But beyond that, 85% simply said that they would expect the down payment to cost more than half of the total value of their personal assets, which is understandably a lot.
I'm sorry. I need to, read that. I'm a little slow today. Hold on. The vast majority, 85%, said they expect a down payment to cost more than half of the total value of their personal assets. They expect a down payment to cost more than half of the total value of their personal assets. I don't get the significance of that.
But to say it was a bad investment is a little bit short-sighted, given that over time the price of housing generally goes up. However, does that necessarily mean it's a good way of making money? Well, the traditional rule of thumb says that a mortgage is a great way to act like a forced savings account, because every single month that you make your payment, you're building equity in an appreciating asset. But to really come up with an accurate answer, you're gonna have to compare that with the cost of renting and the opportunity cost of investing your money somewhere else. Now, in order to do all of this math for yourself, the New York Times created this calculator which determines every aspect of home ownership to tell you if it's cheaper to buy or rent based on your own neighborhood and tax bracket. And to make things
that looks fun to use. Oh my goodness. I gotta look that up now. What would I look up? House. Calculator. I found it. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna say the house is 400,000. I plan to stay 3 years. Oh my. I don't have a house and I don't plan on buying a house because I am unsuccessful and I'm also a minor. But if you want to check that out, the link will be down below. That is so fun.
things interesting, I'll run down a realistic scenario of the place that I'm living in today to see whether or not it's cheaper to buy or rent. Right now it's worth $1,750,000. We'll stay here 10 years. I got a 2.85% mortgage for 30 years. My investment should return 8%, inflation 2.5%, and property taxes 0.87%. Then after the closing costs, this calculator says that if I could rent this house for $5,440 a month or less, then renting is better. Which I gotta say, the market value of this house is probably $9,000 a month, which means that in this scenario, I am better off buying this house than I am renting. But if I sold this house in 2 years, then renting the same house would be cheaper by almost $1,500 a month. Or if I stayed here longer but I averaged 20% from my investments, then renting would also be cheaper because I have less money tied up in the home. Or if
that is a very cool calculator. Oh my goodness.
Home prices stayed flat over the next 5 years, then renting would still be cheaper. So as you can see, there are plenty of scenarios here in which renting is simply the better option. But not always, which is why you need to take everything into consideration to figure out what's a better option for you. And understand that just because you buy a home doesn't automatically mean it's always going to be a good investment. So overall, here's my take on this as a millennial. I generally encourage anyone who's buying a house to do so with the expectation of living there at least 5 to 8 years. Otherwise, the closing cost of buying and selling a house eat away at all the advantages of buying a house in the short term. It's also incredibly important to understand why you're buying a house in the first place and the problems that's going to solve for you. Like, is it a way to save money, get more space, put down roots, or maybe it's a good investment? If it doesn't fall in one of those categories, then chances are you should be looking elsewhere. I also recommend anytime you're about to buy anything, never max out what you can afford. That way, in the event of a job loss or a decline in income, you're never going to have to worry about making your payments. And when you begin putting all of this into perspective from every single one of the 63% of millennial regrets, it sounds more like an issue of poor planning than actually buying the home itself.
See? We're on the same page. I feel so smart right now. Like, oh my gosh, I understand Graham Stephan, you know?
All of these regrets could have been easily avoided with a day of research and planning. And even more than that could have been fixed with the evaluation of whether or not they're buying a house for the right reasons. Even though buying a house could absolutely be a good investment, it doesn't automatically happen that way. And just because you buy a home doesn't always mean it's going to make you money. It's reasonable to expect that as a homeowner, you're going to have to make some compromises. You're not going to get the home you've always wanted, and that's okay. Use this as a stepping stone to learn, get used to the idea of home ownership, and over time you could slowly trade up to the house that you've always wanted. Like the Austin dream house that you could win from Omade.
So, moral of the story, do your research and plan ahead. Make sure you know which is smarter, renting or buying the home. Just research and plan ahead pretty much. And don't expect your dream home. But yeah, again, I love real estate and I loved that. And what I'm hoping on doing in the future, I really want to do this, is I want to buy like one of those condo houses. Like, it's like 2 houses and they're connected with like together, except like 2 people live in it, but it's like the same house. Like, but it's like a condo. I think it's called a condo. Yeah, I think it's a condo. Pretty much, yeah. So I want to buy like a condo where it's like not like an apartment condo kind of thing, but like a condo where it's like 2 houses into one big house and then the 2 people live there. I want to buy one of those, right? And I want to live on one side and I want to charge rent on the other side. So they charge rent and they pay the bills for both of us. So I live free and I'm getting money for that. And it's like really awesome. And I don't know. I need to do more research on it, obviously, but I got time. So, yeah. Oh my goodness. I am so excited for real estate. Real estate is just so cool. But if you are planning on buying a home and renting it to people, be sure that you actually like the people and that they will actually pay their rent. Because I have heard so many stories about like these like really irritating people that aren't easy to get along with, and then the owners, people have to deal with them. Like, the owners of the house have to deal with that, and then, oh my gosh. Anyways, if you like this video, be sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really helps me as a YouTube creator. And I will see y'all next time.